And the reason is you have these. This is the first time in the history of religions that the manifestation of God either wrote or dictated. And so we go directly to the source. So these are a few of the books that I can carry in my backpack that Baha'u'lláh has written. So with that, I just wanted you to know that the three speakers today are not clergy. They are members of the Bahá'í Faith. They have been stalwart serving the community for many years. And we're going to have start with, I forgot the wrong note. This is a nominating committee for next year. Hang on. In fact, some of you I need to talk to you about that when we get done. What is this? Okay. Our distinguished panel today is Marijan Champagne on my left, far left. She's going to talk to us. She's a clinical director, by the way, at the Huntsman Cancer Institute, and she's going to talk to us about the Baha'i Faith from a historical perspective. Then we have Barbara Lockhart to my left as well. Barbara is a deputy Cache County attorney and prosecutes all major felony crimes, including crimes against women and children in Cache County. So everybody better be on your best behavior. And we also have Randall Nubisi, who's an associate with Goldman Sachs. And Randall is going to talk to us about the applications of the Baha'i teachings to everyday life. And Barbara is going to talk about the teachings that Baha'u'lláh brought as the last manifestation of God that we have. So with that, please join me in welcoming Marijan Champagne to the podium.
Thank you, Shahab, and thank you all for having us here today. It's truly a pleasure to be here amongst you. I promised them I wouldn't change the slide, and that was the first thing I did. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you today as we take a brief look at the spiritual progression of humanity in the past 2 centuries. And we really think about, what has happened in the past 200 years that has changed the spiritual, the material, the intellectual progress of mankind. Now, as human beings, we reach a certain point in our lives where we go through maturity. And during this time, we reach a lot of different fundamental changes. We all know this. During this time, we often challenge and we question and we sometimes reject things that we learned in our childhood years. But in that time, we show a tremendous amount of growth and development. Turns out humanity is the same. Humanity goes through these same fundamental changes as well, at the spiritual level. And so the ebb and flow of challenges and victories that we're currently seeing in society every single day is bringing humanity closer and closer to this very normal and very inevitable stage of maturity. As humanity progresses through these various stages of maturity, we know that God doesn't abandon us. It turns out, on the contrary, throughout history, what we see is that He sends us these divine teachers who come and they have these spiritual and social lessons that guide us for what's appropriate in that period of time. A divine teacher is likened to an all-knowing physician, who has his finger on the pulse of mankind, and is looking at what are the spiritual afflictions of that time, what are the social ailments of that time, and he brings the remedy in the form of teachings from God. Now, the difficult challenges that we're currently witnessing in society today prove that this need for spiritual and social guidance is absolutely necessary now more than ever. And when we look at all the past holy books, we read about this joyful glad tidings of the coming of a great spiritual teacher. Guidance will extend far beyond the reach of family and cities and communities, and will extend to a global level to bring unity and betterment to the whole world over. What makes this year so special is that this year marks the 200th anniversary of the birth of Baha'u'lláh. And Baha'u'lláh means the glory of God. And he has brought system of global beliefs known as the Bahá'í Faith, which seek to improve the lives of individuals and societies around the world. And Baha'is believe that Baha'u'lláh is that divine teacher for this day and age. Baha'u'lláh was born into a noble family in 1817. He declined the court position that was offered to him when his father passed away so that he could devote his energies to service and to charitable works. By the time he was in his 20s, he was known widespread as the father of the poor. But because of these very progressive social and spiritual teachings that he brought in the 19th century, he was banished from province to province by the government, distinguished display that was the Bahá'í Faith, but to no avail. His exiles brought him finally to Akka, which is present-day Israel. And there he continued to receive multitudes of visitors, one of whom was Edward Granville Brown. E.G. Brown was a professor at Cambridge University, and he met Baha'u'lláh on 4 separate occasions in April 1890. And what makes this so special is that Professor Brown was actually the only Westerner who met Baha'u'lláh. And in his account of that first visit, it provides us this unique perspective of what it may have been like to be in the presence of Baha'u'lláh. So I'll read just a short excerpt from his writings. Professor Brown wrote, "The face of him on whom I gaze I can never forget, though I cannot describe it. Those piercing eyes seem to read one's very soul. Power and authority sat on the ample brow. No need to ask in whose presence I stood, as I bowed myself before one who is the object of a devotion and love which kings might envy and emperors sigh for in vain. We know that ye shall know them by their fruits." And Baha'u'lláh spent 40 years in exile, imprisonment, and persecution for bringing this message to mankind. But his teachings continue to guide and inspire over 6 million Baha'is worldwide today. And this Light of Unity Festival is truly a celebration of the transformative impact that his teachings have had on our lives, but also the lives of families and neighborhoods and communities all over the world.
I'm hoping I can do the technical part. It's always a little nerve-wracking. So this is such an honor to be here today among all the leaders, I'm sure, that are here and the service-oriented people that are present today. Just a real honor. And so I've just been asked to talk a little bit about some of the teachings that Baha'u'lláh brought back in the mid-1800s and which guide life for Baha'is currently around the world. The concept that Baha'u'lláh brought was the concept of the oneness of God. So in the Baha'i Faith, God is viewed, we're a monotheistic religion. We believe there is only one God. And God for Baha'is is a personal God, but the essence of that creator, whom we view as someone who is the source of all things, who is the creator of the world and all that is therein, that the essence of that creator is unknowable. But that his qualities and his characteristics can become known through his messengers, like Christ. That they appear in the world and reflect for us in absolute purity and clarity the qualities and characteristics of our Creator. And it is through our relationship with these points of light, these manifestations of God, that we are educated as to the nature of our Creator and to our own nature. So we are monotheistic, and we do believe that there is one God. The second concept that Baha'u'lláh brought was that religions are one in their essence and essential teachings. That the Creator that we have just been discussing, who is the source of all love and knowledge in the world, has been educating mankind through these points of light, through these manifestations of God, through these prophets of God, since the beginning of time. Baha'is, Abraham, Krishna, Buddha, Zoroaster, Christ, Muhammad, and most recently for Baha'is, the Bab and Baha'u'lláh, are these gateways or these manifestations of God, and we believe that they all reflect the same light of God. So in that sense, they are one. If you look at any of these portals, you see the light of God. And it is that light that returns to the earth over and over and over again. So we believe that all religions in their essence are one. The next thing that Baha'u'lláh taught was that mankind is one. That because God is our creator and the source of life and light, love and knowledge, we are his children, and I hope that's not my phone. Okay. That we are his children, and that we are associates of one another. We are family. We are all part of the tree of humanity. Cells in one body, one garden, waves of one ocean. That we are connected and united through our relationship with our Creator. And so that concept of the consciousness of the oneness of mankind drives all Baha'i thought. The idea that we are one human family. So all decisions, all consultation, all decisions are sourced in the idea that we are one human family. This concept, I think today we pretty much accept and we believe is accurate, but back in that time, particularly in Persia, where Baha'u'lláh was bringing these teachings, this was quite a radical notion. And many followers of Baha'u'lláh suffered a great deal and were killed because these ideas were such a departure from the part of the world in which Baha'u'lláh introduced these teachings. So Baha'u'lláh said, in the sight of God, men and women are equal, that humanity has the female and the male, and those are the wings of the bird of humanity. So both wings must be equally strong so that humanity can progress appropriately. And that we are entering into an age, a time in humanity, male and female elements of society will be more equally balanced, so that we will hear from or experience both of those elements in their purest and best form. He also mentioned, you might find this interesting, that when women were given full equality and a voice in world affairs as well as all affairs, that we would have world peace, not permit war. They would not be in favor of war. And so women and men are equal in the Baha'i community. The other concept that he brought was the idea that science and religion are in harmony in their essence. That these are both systems of knowledge that come from God. So science, I would think of science as the head, and maybe religion as the heart of the human being and of humanity. So Baha'u'lláh says these are both from our Creator, and they are both valid, and they both must be accessed and used and balance one another. So for example, if we were to have science without the moral grounding of religious truth, science could be used to inflict harm on society. If we have religion without scientific balance and truth and knowledge, it can become superstitious if it is not grounded in scientific truth. So the idea that science and religion are in harmony is one of the teachings that Baha'u'lláh introduced back in the mid-1800s. This is one of my personal favorites, being kind of an independent sort myself, is that Baha'u'lláh said every human being has been given by their Creator their own mind, their own heart, by which they can seek out truth for themselves. So that this is our responsibility and a right that we have, is to decide for ourselves what we believe to be true. I myself was raised in a Roman Catholic family, and I love my family and I love my faith, but as a young person in my early 20s, I decided to investigate the Bahá'í Faith and felt that it was the next correct step for me to take spiritually. And in the Bahá'í Faith, that is our right as an individual, is to pursue truth for ourselves and know what it is we believe and why. This, again, is a foundational principle that Baha'u'lláh introduced, which is that all prejudice of all kinds must be eliminated from the face of the earth. National prejudices, religious prejudices, racial prejudice, gender prejudice, social and caste prejudice. Any external system that we as human beings have constructed that causes disunity. And this is the purpose for the elimination of prejudice, is to eliminate disunity, to bring about unity and the oneness of mankind. So we believe that we are all the fruits of one tree and attempt to live our lives in that way. Education, Baha'u'lláh says, is very, very important because every child is potentially the light of the world. And through education, all those gems that our Creator has so bountifully endowed us can become manifest. And in addition to that, that child, once it is mature, is service to humanity. Their positive, virtuous conduct hopefully will be strengthened in them, and they will be a contributor to the well-being of society, and will also have the ability to investigate truth for themselves. So education is very important. I believe that there is a spiritual solution to the economic problem. That solution being, again, the consciousness of the oneness of mankind. So that those who have been blessed with bounty will be willing, out of the abundance and generosity of their heart, to share it with others voluntarily. Not because someone forced it, not because someone told them they had to, but out of an abundance of love for their fellow human beings, that they will be willing to voluntarily share their wealth with others. Also said, in order for us to have a unified world, which is the entire purpose of the revelation of Baha'u'lláh, is to bring mankind into a peaceful, unified world, that we should adopt a language that we use as the language of international discourse. It strikes me, and this is only my thought, that English has become that in some ways, that all of the nations seem to know their own language, but also when they get on the international stage or are discoursing between nations, it seems that English has sort of become that language. Because in order to have peace, we have to communicate effectively. Baha'u'lláh also advocated a commonwealth of nations, whereby all nations of the world would deliberate and participate in the decisions affecting the planet in a federalist type of system where the individual members of that organization are protected and their own rights are protected, but decisions are made globally so that the planet itself has guidance and structure from the community of nations. So those are some of very brief recitation of some of the teachings of Baha'u'lláh. And I will just end with this slide, which is what we started with when Baha'u'lláh stood up. This is what Baha'is are striving to do. And I believe so many people are striving to do today beyond the Baha'i community. I see it in this room. I think everywhere in society today, you see large numbers of people who love humanity, who are not bounded by any limitations in terms of their love for humanity, and who are serving humanity to the best of their ability. So again, it is such an honor to be here with you today.
Tough to follow to women, especially after what Barbara mentioned in terms of the equality of man and woman. In preparing for this session, I was reflecting on some of the core objectives of the Rotary Club, service above self. And I was thinking about how some of these core beliefs that you strive to push forward really resonate with the efforts of the worldwide Baha'i community. I think these are beliefs that everyone in this room is quite familiar with. Ethical standards in business and professional lives, the importance of having an occupation, the idea that every acquaintance should be used as an opportunity for service. So these elements, I think, are very critical to the very nature in which Baha'is are trying to operate. As Marshan mentioned earlier, I think this slide sort of helps represent that notion of the evolution of humanity as compared to that of a human being. And that would reach the stage of our collective maturity. The question then that we'll ask is, how in the world are Baha'is then trying to apply these very high ideals into reality? One of the other elements that I think we would like to explore is this idea that for anything good to happen, something has to sacrifice itself. For any process of growth to happen, something of lesser value must sacrifice itself for something of greater value. For example, must be willing to give up itself if it is to become a tree. The food we just ate, must be willing to give up itself if it's to sustain us. Maybe it doesn't have, an opinion, but we must be willing to sacrifice it if we are to consume it and help us, continue to grow. The question we can ask is, how do we move forward? How do Baha'is move forward, and what is it that Baha'is are trying to do that really correlate with some of the efforts of the folks in this room? To this teaching and to this concept of how we move forward as 7 fundamental changes in how society sees itself. One of them is education by itself. The Baha'i community is striving to put together an educational system that has at its core the fundamental purpose of building capacity in our fellow human beings to serve. And so when we look at education from that lens, we can see that we should be gaining capacity to be of service to the rest of humanity. Education is seen in the Baha'i Faith along these lines. It's not simply seen as an acquisition of knowledge and the development of skills, but also in terms of the development of vast and powerful potentialities inherent in the very nature of every human being. So now what this educational system that Baha'is and like Barbara and Marjan said, and many, many others who align themselves with these forces, what it's allowing us to do is create maybe a series of core activities that we then invite all our friends, our families, and colleagues to join us in those. And so I'll talk a little bit about a couple of those core activities. The first one, I think, which Barbara mentioned, is the education of children. Baha'is strive to create spaces where each child, irrespective of their family background, religious background, are invited into a community setting to think about the nobility of themselves, how great they are, and the amazing potentialities they have for the welfare of humanity. How they are educated, that we should regard man as a mine rich in gems of inestimable value. Education can alone cause it to reveal its treasures and to benefit therefrom. So that's sort of the first outcome of this educational system that we invite all our friends to join us in. The second outcome of this system is a system for the empowerment of junior youth. These are people within the ages of 12 and 15. I think this slide maybe captures it clearly. You think about a tree, and it's at this point in its life where once it bends a certain way, there is no turning back. All you can do is cut that down. And so it's integral that society has systems in place to allow the right nutrients to feed into this tree so it can grow to become productive. This particular program, over the last few years, about 500,000 or so youth within this age worldwide, most of whom are not Baha'is, have participated in it. 3 fundamental things this group do, similar to what I think this room are familiar with. They study, they think about how they can apply what they've studied in service, and then create spaces for positive social interaction. Rises, again, another element of this educational systems that Baha'is are proposing to the world. One more dimension of this system is really the ability for us to bring our friends, our colleagues, our co-workers into a space where we can pray and reflect on what may be of importance to us at any given time. We think it is critical that we have these spaces again at a neighborhood setting where we can connect with each other, irrespective of who we are, where we're from, and just think about what's important and meditate upon that, and hopefully arrive at decisions that we can go back again and serve, create more classes for our children, create more spaces for those in junior high to orient themselves correctly. think you would agree then that these efforts would ultimately question the very nature of the relationships that exist between us and individuals, between us as a community, and ultimately the institutions that govern us. Unless we're able to rethink how we associate ourselves at these three levels, we feel we may fall back into some of the pitfalls that history has proven. As leaders of community, as leaders of business, I think you in this room have a great role to play in this regard. And we welcome you to join us along this path of service. We applaud your efforts and look for more opportunities such as these to associate members of society such as yourself. I think if anybody's ever gone hiking, probably the toughest hike is the person who goes up that trail the first time, because they have no idea where they're going. And made similar to a path, it allows for more and more people to join. And as we walk along that trail, irrespective of where we are, some might be running up the hill, others might just be walking. But it ensures that we know where we're going and we're able to get there as a unit. I'll just leave you with Faith of Bahá'u'lláh. Let your vision be world-embracing rather than confined to your own selves. So welcome back, our dear friend Shahab, to maybe help us go through any questions that the room may have.
Happy to entertain questions if you have any, and direct it, especially the tough ones, to Barbara and Marjan. Yes.
What do you see as the role or necessity of faith in achieving these very lofty goals?
That is a really good question. I'm looking to go for it, Barbara, and she's pointing right at me. You see, this is my feeling that Barbara told you that she became a Baha'i through the process that she was going through. One of the reasons that I became a Baha'i is that Baha'u'lláh has given us this blueprint in terms of how we can achieve this unity of humankind. Man-made systems have gotten us in trouble before, and my feeling is that just like the slide, let me go back to, by the way, this picture is of the shrine of Baha'u'lláh outside of Accra, Israel, over the world, over a pilgrimage. And Barb Guy, the dear editor of our newsletter, one time next to my picture, she put this beautiful pic, it was a picture of the mansion that Baha'u'lláh lived in. And I looked at it and I said, where'd that come from? But that was Barbara who knew I put it in. Anyway, that building is the taller building in the center. But I'm going to go back to this slide that I think was part of Barbara's, to see if I can answer the question a little bit better. This idea that these teachers from God come and bring messages to humanity for the time that they're in. For example, Moses and Jesus and Muhammad. Muhammad came and he united nations. Before him, Jesus said, no, love thy neighbor, right? So as we have progressed, these messages from God have gotten more complicated as we have matured. It has become more important. And I think what Marjan said in terms of you shall know them by their fruits, that's a way to judge it, because I think man-made systems have not proven to be. Nick?
You have on here equality of women and men.
Mm-hmm.
One thing all of the, I think you call it the essence, all these people who come in the essence of God are all coming in the forms of men. And then even described the God that we believe in, and I think you used his as your descriptive of God, and this is just kind of all religions. I mean, it's all male all the time. And so I'm just wondering, and I tried Googling a lot of those names that I didn't know. to make sure that they were all men. They were all men. So I'm wondering if the next 9
Are going to be women?
are going to be women.
I don't know. Do you like her? Terry likes that idea. And so does Stu over there. Ladies.
So I love that question. I love that question. And I don't know the answer to what our creators has planned for us next, and it wouldn't surprise me if we realize the equality of men and women in this dispensation. Would our creator send us a female the next time? It's possible. I don't know what is planned. And I don't know why thus far that the creator has chosen to use the male vehicle as the manifestations of God. It may have to do with the capacity of human beings and where they are at in terms of their consciousness. Maybe everybody has to catch up to the girls before we can have a female. So I don't know for sure. But I guess as a woman, as a member of the Baha'i community, my understanding is that the soul itself has no gender. So our spiritual essence is genderless, and that these genders are part of the system of life here in the physical plane of existence. And so we'll have to see what happens in the future. But the equality of men and women is based on a fundamental spiritual principle that in the eyes of God, these are both emanations of his will, and that we are equal, and there is no reason to distinguish us. Without getting too far afield, I think both make contributions. I had a conversation at the Unitarian Church this last weekend. What is masculine? What is feminine? And what do they contribute to society? And so maybe those are conversations that we need to have and understand the female and the nature of the male in their purest form, and decide what we're going to do with that. So that's not really an answer to what you're asking. We'll see what the future brings. We'll have to see.
Great question, Nick. Let's go there and then back to Terry.
These are 10 great points that you leave in here. I wanted to look, and I wish you luck on getting all 10 of them.
What do you mean, you?
Anyway, the last two, the one regarding language is quite interesting to me. It was mentioned that maybe English will eventually be a universal language. I mean, how do you really see that playing out over the world? Certainly, if we all had a common language, that would be very helpful. And then a Commonwealth of Nations, that's been tried a couple of times in the last century. And what is the UN going to morph into that? Can you please answer that question for me?
Short answer is I have no idea. I'll start and then turn it over to Randall. The Universal Auxiliary Language is a truly, I think, revolutionary idea, because every language has its rich poetry and culture, and we want to preserve those. They are very powerful. But we want to be able to communicate with each other so we don't miscommunicate and create problems. He or she can tell you how much we've had problems in terms of just communicating between the two of us, creating misunderstanding. So imagine how nations try to work with each other. So if we taught everybody another language, I'm kind of with Barbara hoping it's English so I don't have to learn a third language. The second one was hard enough. The world has to come together and kind of create the institutions, whether it's the UN or not, I don't know. We need to get rid of that purity of motive in terms of creating these institutions that will decide on one language that we teach all the kids, or one currency. When you think about all the currencies that are in the world, do they really add value to humanity? The exchange rate that goes up and down, does that really help anyone? If you think about what happened with the euro and the eurozone, and I don't want to get into politics because that would take confusing. Well, I don't know about perfect, but Terry, and then I'll come over on this side. I see you.
I'm just wondering if all of the points of light or messengers, and it's more of a takeoff on the next question, if you believe they've all been identified, could there be females out there that were messengers for their given time that the universe needed them or the world needed them, that were female, but they were not historically identified?
I know that in Native American prophecy, they have the concept of the white buffalo calf woman. I don't know a lot about her, but I know she is sacred to Native Americans. I will also say that in the revelation of Baha'u'lláh, he was being severely persecuted and was confined in a very dark underground prison with no light. And the communication that he received from the spiritual realm was via a woman. That was, he called her the maid of heaven. And so again, yes, maybe there are some women that we're not familiar with who have had a significant spiritual influence on a segment of the population that we don't know about. But again, the spiritual station of women, the more that I look into it, it's definitely there. And functions being performed, but it's definitely there.
I say this with all due respect. Some of the things you talked about, these incredible values and goals, shy away from the political world completely. I'm trying to understand how that is, because trying to get to universal education, universal language, all of those things require it.
Very good question, Brandon.
Repeat the question, please.
Yes.
The question was about how can we achieve, I think, some of these very high ideals without the existence of a political system, because I think the observation was that, we may shy away from politics, and how can you do this? Universal education and the like without a political system. Very good question, and I think key to that, and my fellow panelists can assist me, politics is actually a topic that Baha'is are encouraged to study, interestingly enough. The idea, though, that Baha'is shy away from is partisan politics. This idea that we cannot arrive at a decision unless I tear someone else down. But we do need to discuss things in a particular way, in a particular manner, in order to arrive at a decision. So it's not that politics is not needed, but what is not encouraged in the writings of the Bahá'í Faith is this idea of partisan politics, and how it does not necessarily lead us in the right direction, because again, to move up, you need to send the other person down, and vice versa. And then just a quick comment I also just wanted to mention on the subject of male and female. I think part of it too is the limitation of language. As an example, many of the writings of the Bahá'í Faith, based on where it came from, are in Arabic or Farsi, where sometimes the language itself doesn't have gender necessarily associated in particular words. And so sometimes, again, based on humanity over centuries, we've had a very male-oriented language, and so we have to modify language. So sometimes when these writings are translated, the only word or the appropriate word in English would be man or something, because that's the word. But language sometimes is a limitation as to some of these elements. I don't know if that addresses your question on politics, but it's vying or staying away from the idea of partisan politics that is critical to the faith.
I just really wanted to quickly address your concerns, because you're absolutely right. I'll just take a second. This is a statement on the World Commonwealth, bringing together the nations, that is from one of the central figures in the Baha'i Faith. I'll just briefly read it to give you just a sense of where Baha'is are heading in terms of their beliefs about what is going to work to bring the world together. So the unity of the human race as envisaged by Baha'u'lláh implies the establishment of a world commonwealth in which all nations, races, creeds, and classes are closely and permanently united, and in which the autonomy of its state members and the personal freedom and initiative of the individuals that compose them are definitely and completely safeguarded. And then it goes on to talk about the structure of this organization, the worldwide legislature, the need for a worldwide executive body. It's very much, as I understand it, please understand, this is me only. I'm not saying this is what Baha'u'lláh said, but my understanding is that it's very much framed in the way the United States is, where the individual states have their own sovereignty, and then the federal government just works on the relationships between states and things that apply to the whole. And so I believe that that system of federalism is what is envisaged by the Baha'i community in terms of establishing worldwide commonwealth.
I know there's lots of hands up, but our chairman today, Steve, gave me the sign. So there's a couple of things I want to tell you about. Number one, Jan and I would like to invite any of you who are interested on these topics to our home next Wednesday night, October 4th at 7:30 p.m. We're going to have a discussion around life of the Spirit. So if you would let us know if you're going to come or not, we'd make sure there's enough cookies. Reminds me of a story, just quickly. This gentleman gets on an airplane and goes to sit down and sees this young lady studying the book, and says hello, and says, I hear that if we have a good conversation and a lively conversation, the flight will go very much faster. And the young lady continues reading her book and goes, and he says, okay, but if we have a discussion about why there is no God, and there's no life after death, and there's nothing after what we're here for, I think this would be a great flight. The young lady finally closes the book, looks up and says, okay, but I have a question for you. You know, sheep, cows, what was the other one? Horses, sheep, cows, and horses all eat grass, right? But one puts out pellets, the other one puts out pies, and the other one lumps. Why is that? And the guy just, stopped and looks around. I don't know. So the young lady says, how can you dare talk about subjects as weighty as the existence of God, or whether there's life after death, when you don't know shit? With that, our topic of discussion on Wednesday is going to be the life of the Spirit, whether the genderless that Barbara talked about and so on. And then the actual birthday of Baha'u'lláh is on Saturday, the 21st of October. Salt Lake City Library, we're going to have a program to honor his birth, and there's going to be a program about on that day at the Salt Lake City Library, and we would love to have you all join us. Thank you for your time, and those of you who can make it, we look forward to welcoming you to our home on Wednesday night. See you.